allow greater movement. And we're very much a community-led project, but we work in close collaboration with landowners and with experts, and we work very closely with Nigel, and we are, as you say, starting to build a relationship with Angelique at the Dartmoor end. So, oh yeah, is it up or down?
I'm not sure. Okay.
There we go. You said it was counterintuitive, Nigel, so I thought down must be it. So this is our catchment, and the real point is we are catchment wide. Although we have projects on the river and along the river, we consider the catchment as a whole, because when you look at the river health, it is about the catchment and what is coming into the river from the catchment, as well as trying to look at the biodiversity and the wildlife corridors on the land. So it's kind of taking the whole bigger picture. And in order to do that, we're looking at areas where we can restore the existing habitats and therefore reduce some of the contamination going into the river and restore the river to better health, as Nicola was talking about this morning. We want to connect, that's our sort of prime, so we say top target, to connect the existing areas of high status, so that with climate change and pressures on wildlife, that there is room for them to move and get greater resources. And protect, so those ones that we have got, putting protective shelters and borders around them, whether that's protecting the river, because protecting it from extreme sunshine, protecting, using the trees for flooding protection, but also one of the key points is about biodiversity and about edge effect. The smaller our areas get, the more damaging it is in terms of reducing biodiversity and the resilience of those habitats. So this schematic is sort of trying to show that. When you've got a big area, you can allow the whole area to develop its ecosystem. And in the peripheral areas where there's more disturbance, you'll get less variety, but in the core, you'll get the higher tier and you'll get more. But if those become fragmented, then the edge effect, like anything, the edge effect becomes bigger. So the biodiversity becomes less. I mean, there's one perhaps example, there's a place on the Yealm called Dendle's Wood, and up and around there is a woodland that's privately owned and hasn't been disturbed for 25 years, and it's next to a Devon wildlife woodland, and we're hoping to do a survey of the two. But this is, it's broader than just that. It's about protecting our ancient woodlands by perhaps planting new woodland around it, so it gives it more resilience. So we were asked to cover a few things, like what's going well. Well, one of the things that is really going well is definitely deciding to work with expert organisations is going well, because that's allowing us to be educated, and it's also, we're gaining credibility by working with experts, because we're not trying to front face this with landowners and farmers. We want to use the expert organisations who know how to talk to people, how to talk to farmers, and how to encourage them with wildlife-friendly farming and catchment-friendly farming. We've also had the help of West Country Rivers Trust with doing our citizen science, which is now regularly monthly samples being taken all along the river. And also we have this continuous water monitor, which is giving us a live feed of certain parameters in the water, and we've got it set up to give us alerts. So if the dissolved solids or the turbidity of the water goes up, an alert is sent out so that we can go and actually eyeball it, see what the problem might be, try and trace where the problem is coming from, so that we start to know what the issues are for the river and what problems it's facing. It's also about what we have been doing. We set up a strategy, having got our sort of overall goals about connect and protect and restore. We felt we needed a clear strategy for the next 10 years. We looked at COP15, what's their strategy? Oh, okay, increasing biodiversity by 30%. We say, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for the Yealm? So we said, well, okay, we only really got going in 2022. That was our first really active year. And we said, well, what are we doing to start with? And we said, the key thing is we need to get baseline data. We need to understand where we are now, and we need to understand what data is already available so that we really understand the river and therefore what we can target to improve. And then we can use that data collectively with a number of groups along the catchment to say, where are the most important areas that will improve the situation? So, you know, is it protecting this wood? Will that protecting that wood also create some opportunity to reduce flooding? You know, if we can get sort of layering of wins for the project. So we're currently looking at how we can do that, and I'll say a bit more on that in a minute. That all is very long term, and you then feel, well, actually we're not doing anything now. So what we said was we should also just identify early opportunities to engage with landowners, and this is where we worked with the Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group and DW2. We funded them to go out and talk to the landowners and to identify projects. Meanwhile, once you get your name out there, people come forward. For example, Kitley Estate down in Yealm said, I've got this field, it's been cleared of trees that didn't work, we want to do something with it. So we said, this is a good start, let's restore it, let's get trees planted there, meadows, a meadow strip put in there. So we're just seizing opportunities where willing landowners are just saying, I've got 2 or 3 acres, I can get trees put on them. Because obviously that's a win because we're getting trees planted, but it's also allowing us to understand what our capability and our capacity is, because, you know, suddenly calling on a load of volunteers and to plant 4,000 trees initially seemed very daunting. You know, where are we going to get the volunteers from? How are we going to plant 4,000 trees? But actually, we've learnt now how to do that, you know, that's helping us to pace ourselves on what we can actually achieve. And also that is also giving us that engagement with the community. And as Peter mentioned, we've been doing tree nurseries, and that's a key way of engaging with the community. And from doing tree nurseries in community, we then identified primary schools who are interested, because then it's part of their forest school curriculum. We're now expanding to look at what we can do with the only senior school or community college that we have within our estuary, and about a new A-level they're talking about setting up, and what we might be able to do with field work with them. And so that's all about getting known and working with them. So our future plans, we're going to be doing some more wooded shelter belts along the river. We've identified areas of the river that don't have tree protection, and also where cattle can actually get down to the water's edge, which is not good because of the contamination they can bring. We're looking at working with and still encouraging this catchment sensitive land management. We've got plans to have a riverfly assessment. We're just trying to get funding for that at the moment. I've mentioned the undisturbed wood with the neighbouring woodland. Again, looking to get university students along with DWT to do a project there. We're surveying the barriers. We know from feasibility, we did a scoping study first of all on all the data for the river and its catchment, and then we did a feasibility study about trying to start to identify the priority areas that we could work on, and we're surveying the fish barriers, which have been talked about a bit this morning. And we're looking for more meadow creation. This is from the beelines map that you can see. You probably can't see from where you're sitting, but it does go all the way up our estuary. So bringing in meadows and bee-friendly areas is going to be a win-win for the beelines project as well. And then finally, the challenges we face. I mean, we've had a great year, but it really is growing, this project. So one of our crucial things is about how we prioritise the projects to get the best going forward. And one of the things we are doing, and there's a couple of groups here that I want to approach, we've started to work with ANOB, Environment Agency, Rivers Trust, DWT to form a catchment group, and it would be great to have the Dartmoor National Park on that group so that we can look at what we're all doing along the river and then say, okay, where are the gaps? Where do we need to do more in areas, and who can best take the lead on doing that? The other challenge is about how we record and demonstrate progress, because we will have to demonstrate it both to our funders and also for ourselves to show that we are actually making a difference. You were saying about the flooding programme, you know, it might seem like very little, but actually sometimes a little can have a much bigger consequence. So this is about mapping, and there's a lot of mapping going on in different places. So one of the things that we'd like to do is to work out how we map our progress on the River Yealm. The other one is about how we maintain and improve our publicity, our social media, our community engagement, because we're very much about getting things done, but then you have to think about how do you draw people in, how do you take them with you, which is just another challenge in itself. How we can encourage the riparian farmers to form clusters so they build a confidence and a lack of cynicism about what they can do as a group, neighbouring farmers working together and sharing ideas. And then how we approach doing, on the river we're doing a lot of this baseline monitoring with all the citizen science, and the question is how do we do that on the land? It's a bit more difficult because every bit of land is different. So trying to work out how we're improving things and who the expertise is, and can we develop a citizen science programme. So those are really the challenges that we're trying to address over the coming years. So that's it from me.
Thank you. Wow, amazing. Thank you very much. Right, what we're going to do now, we've got 15 minutes. So if you look at the name on your table, this one's Diane, this one is Angelique and Kerry, and this one is Nigel. If you've got specific interest in any of these projects and you want to ask more questions, find out more, move to those tables, if I could ask you to do that. Or if you're quite happy where you are, that's fine. Now, what I will also need is one person from each table to volunteer to take notes from that table, and we can collect those and whatever the thoughts and findings are from those tables and feed those back at the end. So is that okay? Do we have a volunteer here, please? Looking at nobody.
We better let people sit where they want to sit.
Yeah, go sit where you want. Go sit
I
where
won't
you
be
want.
offended if you get up.